Hey guys, welcome back. So today I want to talk about my Armalite AR180. I posted some pictures of this rifle on my Instagram account and a bunch of you guys said shoot it. And the reason you said shoot it is because this is a Costa Mesa rifle, which means it was built by Armalite and it's never been fired before. It's brand new in the box. The box is a bit tattered and torn. When I got the rifle, of course, I bought it after it was well used. It came out of a private collection. And the box is a shambles, but I do have the box and the original manual, sling, and other accessories that came with the rifle, including 2 original 20-round magazines. I do have a 40-round Sterling magazine here as well. These things have become very scarce and very valuable, on the open market. So anyway, this is my AR-180. Again, Costa Mesa made these rifles in the early days. Costa Mesa is where Armalite's offices were originally. They weren't really set up to manufacture rifles in mass production. So most of these early guns from 1969 to 1972 is when they were producing them in Costa Mesa. These early guns exhibit signs of hand fitting and things like that because, again, they just simply weren't set up to mass produce rifles. Ultimately, Armalite sold the rights to manufacturing to a couple of different companies. The 2 primary companies that wound up actually producing the rifles were Howa of Japan and also Sterling of England. In 1970, or right around 1970, is when Howa obtained those rights to manufacture, and they manufactured the guns until around 1974. The reason they stopped manufacturing them is because the Japanese government cracked down on arms manufacturing and exporting of arms, even though those arms were being exported to the United States, and they basically put them out of business. They could no longer manufacture these rifles for sales on the commercial market. So that's when the manufacturing rights transferred over to Sterling of England. They produced the guns up until 1983. The guns are interesting. It is a Eugene Stoner design. He was working on the rifles initially as the AR-12, then the AR-16, and then the AR-18, which are full auto designations for this rifle. The 180 designation means it's semi-automatic. The AR-16, which is the predecessor to this rifle, looked very similar to this gun, except it was in .308, 7.62 NATO. The gun was originally designed to compete with the AR-15, which was another Armalite design of Eugene Stoner's brain. The M16 was more complicated to manufacture, and so they were looking for a low-cost alternative for some third world nations that were looking for military rifles, but really couldn't tool up to manufacture the AR-15. So this gun did compete with the AR-15. Now, when no military trials, or when no militaries really adopted the gun, Armalite, again, kind of dropped it. They stopped pursuing military contracts and just focused on civilian sales, working through those companies that had licensed the manufacturing. You can tell the Costa Mesa guns from the markings on the receiver. It'll say manufactured by in Costa Mesa, USA, Armalite Inc., and then the later guns that were manufactured by Howa and by Sterling will say manufactured for Costa Mesa by Sterling or Howa. Now, these early guns are a bit crude. When you look at them, you can see the spot weld showing through on the receiver. They aren't pretty guns to look at, but they're functional. Rumor has it that the Sterlings were the lowest quality of the guns, the English-made guns. The Howas are probably the most desirable in terms of the fit and finish. And then the Costa Mesa guns are desirable simply because these are actually made by Armalite, although the fit and finish on the gun isn't exactly pretty. It's a very crude gun, but they do work. Field stripping the gun is really simple. First of all, I'll show you how the stock folds. There's 2 little pins here you can pinch with your index finger and thumb. You pinch those pins and the stock will fold to the left-hand side of the rifle. It has a little detent that locks it in place. But you can see that hinging mechanism is a little bit flimsy looking. I wouldn't slap the stock around too much, but it does lock up fairly sturdily. To take it apart, there's a little spring and plunger here that you pinch right behind the rear sight. You pinch it and push in on this little tab, and then it will hinge forward, allowing you to take the dual recoil springs out of the gun. Pull the charging handle to the rear to this little takedown slot right here on the side of the receiver, and the charging handle just pulls out. There's no detent or anything holding it. And then the bolt and carrier can be pulled out of the rear of the gun. You can separate the upper and lower by pushing a pin here on the front, much like the AR-15. The pin is not captive, so it'll come out, and then you'll have the upper and lowers separate. Once you take the recoil springs out, the tips of these springs actually are also the front handguard retainer. So once you remove this spring, or these springs, the handguard will just lift off the top, exposing the short stroke gas piston system. it has 3 separate components to the gas piston, and that's pretty much so they could, it's easy to disassemble, I should say. So you'll pull the gas piston to the rear, take out this little piece, and then pull it off to one side, and then the primary piston and recoil spring, or the action spring here, return spring on the piston will be there. It can easily be taken off. So those are the 3 primary components of the gas piston system. So that's the rifle, completely stripped down, all sheet metal, all stampings, again, made to be very affordable, and this one has never been fired. As evidence of that, I'll show you a close-up here of the bolt and carrier. You can see it has the trademark AR-15 style bolt with the lugs and the plunger assembly, extractor on the right-hand side. Again, a predecessor to the AR-15, or actually it was developed roughly around the same time, but you can definitely see Eugene Stoner's influences on the gun. It does have the ability to mount a scope, this little triangular piece of sheet metal stamped up here. I'm looking for a scope mount for it. The original Armalite scopes are somewhat rare. I'm hoping to be able to find one eventually, but people like SaberWorks and some other companies make mounts for these rifles so you can attach modern conventional optics to it. Putting the gun back together is super simple. You just take your gas piston, put it in here, push it rearward, push it far enough back where you can get this piece in. That's it. It's back together. Set your handguard on top. Take your bolt and carrier, set it in here, push it forward to the takedown notch, take your charging handle, stick it in there, and slide it forward. I'm going to go ahead and pin the upper and lower back together. Now it's kind of funny. The pins on this thing seem to be really loose. Like when the upper and lower together, it seems like they move around a lot, but when you put that pin in there, it shorts it up pretty good. A little bit of play between the upper and lower, but not much. And you also have to be careful. I see that SaberWorks sells replacement hinge pin points up here, which have to be spot welded into place, but people that drop that upper against the lower can actually stress fracture this. It's kind of a weak point of the design, so you want to be careful about that. Take your recoil spring, stick it in here, kind of line up the 2 holes, push it forward, push the detent on the plunger, and it's back together and ready to fire. The magazines look very much like AR-15 magazines. You'll notice, though, on the original Armalites, it just has a slit cut here on the side versus the hole we'll find on our AR-15s, but the magazines otherwise are identical. As a matter of fact, you'll find some third parties that manufactured magazines that fit both AR-15s and AR-180s. They'll have the hole in the slit. So, very interesting piece of history. So what's up next is shooting this thing. I'm going to put the first few rounds through the rifle outside of the factory test firing that this gun's ever had fired through it. All right, guys, here we go. First 20 rounds. Now, my buddy who's running the camera right now is saying, "You don't have to do it, man." But you know what? He's right. I always say, I'll never own a gun that I won't shoot, so might as well shoot it. I have 20 rounds of Wolf Gold. I've been using this stuff quite a bit lately. I picked this stuff up from luckygunner.com. I'm going to run this through the rifle. This is 5.56 spec ammunition, which is fine with this rifle. Stick that 20-round magazine in there. Clicks into place. Grab the charging handle. It is a reciprocating charging handle, so you want to keep your hand well clear of that. Also, it's kind of cool to point out that it does have a dust cover, so you can snap this closed. Keeps grime out of the action when you're shooting it, or until you're ready to shoot it. When you do fire the gun, it'll pop that dust cover open, kind of like an AR-15. Again, a lot of carryover features from the AR. Okay, let's see how close the sights are to being on. I'm sure over the years, whoever owned it before probably turned this knob left and right. We'll see if elevation maybe is good. I got a steel ringer out there. It's about 12 inches in diameter. See if I can hit that thing. Holy cow, it hit. That sucker's rocking. All right. Very mild recoil. Seems to have cycled. Let's fire one more round, make sure it's working. Hit it again. These sights are actually on. That's incredible. Hit it again. And hit it again. Hit the one right next to it. What a sweet shooting rifle. Now, I have owned one of these before many years ago. I bought one of the Sterling rifles and foolishly sold it. I didn't see its collector's value. I replaced it later with this one. But wow, what a nice shooting rifle. I forgot what they were like. The sights are a conventional peep sight. So you have a peep in the rear and a front post, very much like an AR-15 in the front. The sight picture is surprisingly similar to the AR-15, except much more broad. You can see how wide the ears are back here. Trigger pull is a little bit spongy, fairly crisp let off. It's heavy. I'll have to measure it, but I'm going to guess it's 8 pounds or maybe a little heavier. Plenty of over travel. But yeah, this sucker's right on there, man. Gosh, that's awesome. Who would have thought? All these years sitting in a safe, and these sights have been on, and nobody's pulled the trigger. Very nice. All right, locked open, the last shot fired. It does look like some of these cases are just barely kind of falling out of the gun. It doesn't have very violent ejection, but you know, it's very simple. Oh, I'm sorry, not simple. It's very similar to the AR-15 with its plunger mechanism. So it's not like an AK that has a fixed ejector that really whacks that case as the bolt comes back. It's just kind of spring-loaded and just kind of flips it out. So that's not to be, not unexpected behavior. Has a really nice sight picture. What an easy rifle to shoot. Like I said, I almost forgot what it was like. Well, that was a lot of fun. First 20 rounds. Happy, very happy. What I didn't even realize when I was talking to you guys earlier is the fact that the Sterling 40-round magazine that I have actually has the AR-15 cut in it. So you have the slit over here on the right-hand side, and of course the AR-15 on the left-hand side. Don't ask me what that little circular hole is, I couldn't tell you. So anyway, I'm gonna stick the Sterling 40-rounder in there. It does not have a bolt release like the AR-15, there's no paddle, so you just have to grab the charging handle and let it go. Has a selector lever much like the AR-15. Ha! Look at that, a malfunction. That's kind of a crazy looking malfunction. I don't know if that's because of the magazine. Again, the Sterlings weren't known for quality. Let's go ahead and clear it really quick. There's another round in there. Shake it out. All right. I got 20 rounder in here. Let's see if that works better. Yeah, that 20 rounder seems to work a lot better. We'll go ahead and grab the 40 rounder and finish it out here. See if it improves. Despite the trigger being a little bit heavy, it's actually a pretty nice trigger. It works pretty well. Even standing at 100 yards, it's really easy to hit that steel ringer. It's, again, a very easy rifle to shoot. Sight picture is very familiar if you shoot AR-15s. Wow. There we go. So we finished out the magazine with no more issues. Again, a very, very nice gun to shoot. A lot of fun. I hope you guys enjoyed coming out this afternoon to shoot my once new AR-180. You know, like I said, I originally had one of these rifles, a Sterling manufactured gun that I sold. For whatever reason, I thought many years ago, perhaps I no longer had much of an interest in firearms, had a fairly large collection. I started selling off guns to buy camera equipment and things like that. And there are a lot of guns I came to regret selling. The Sterling was one of them, which is how I wound up on Gunbroker looking at AR-180s, which made me buy this rifle. I guess the silver lining in that story is I traded a Sterling for an original Costa Mesa Armalite. So I upgraded. I actually also got one that was unfired. So that, to me, I guess is a happy ending to that story. What's kind of interesting about the rifles is, you know, the U.S. military did consider adopting it. In the mid-60s, I want to say around 1966, the U.S. Army had the rifle out at the Aberdeen Proving Grounds, and they were testing it as a possible replacement or a complementary firearm to the M16. And because there were some problems there with the M16 in the early days, and they wound up, you know, declining it and never was adopted by the U.S. military. And sales of the gun stopped in 1983. Now, Armalite, which used to be Eagle, Eagle purchased the rights to the name Armalite, so the current Armalite company has no ties to the original Armalite that manufactured this gun. But the new Armalite did bring to production in 2001 a rifle very similar to this. It was an AR-180B. The AR-180B was almost identical to this rifle with the exception of a polymer lower. They reduced the production costs by making that lower out of polymer. And of course, this one's made out of sheet metal. And the gun continued to sell for a few years, but sales were sluggish. And they eventually dropped it from their offerings, and it's no longer available, but you can find them on the used gun market, places like Gunbroker and stuff like that. I, of course, would much prefer to have one of the originals like this. I'll probably never buy one of the AR-180Bs. If you guys have any questions about anything you've seen in this video, of course, you can ask those questions on our Facebook page. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/militaryarms. Also, please come by and check out Copper Custom. It's my online store. If you guys want to support the Military Arms channel, that's the best possible way to do it. We have a lot of good products at very good prices. And if you haven't already, please check out full30.com. Swing by full30.com. I'll put a link in the description below. You'll find that my videos are released there before they're released on YouTube. Thanks again for watching, everybody. We'll talk to you guys soon.